Hello everybody, this is Dr. Adesina again. I'm here to answer one of the questions one of my viewers on YouTube was asking. The question goes by this: how did you study in medical school and what are the best techniques to approach studying in medical school? That's a great question. Well, the first thing I want you to remember as you're going into medical school is that it's a totally different mindset. It's a totally different way of studying. The techniques you use in college will never work in medical school because the volume of the information is astronomical. So one of the first things I did was first to be open-minded, basically to be able to try different avenues of studying. First, I know this is going to require a lot of reading, but there's different forms of reading. There's active learning, there's passive learning, there's a kinesthetic way of learning, there's auditory way of learning. So I try to incorporate as many different forms of learning modality. The first thing I did was buy a whiteboard. Right? That might not seem intuitive to you, but if you have a whiteboard as a medical student or graduate student, what this forces you to do is write. All right, that is active writing. So if you're learning biochemistry and you can buy detachable whiteboards, that's actually just the plain white one you can attach and reattach to your walls at home, and you've got 10 pathways to memorize for the exam. You can either memorize them in your mind or you can write them on a whiteboard inside your apartment or your house and have this stuck on the walls. Now, over a course of time, as you wake up every day, you will look at that board and you will realize that your brain just automatically starts to pick up on the pathway and reinforces the concept. Because at the end of the day, it's all about repetition, right? The more you see it, the more you remember it. So you have to remember the glycolysis pathway, right? You drew your glycolysis pathway, the Krebs cycle, on a whiteboard, put it on the wall at home, and every time you wake up in the morning, you see it, you're like, oh, that's isotreated dihydrogenase. Now I know where that is. All right. That's alpha ketoglutarate. You will be able to see it over and over. So that really helped me tremendously. All right. I had this whiteboard. I also had a bunch of other smaller versions of detachable whiteboards. And anything I cannot remember, I just write it on the whiteboard so that even if I went to bed, I woke up the next day, I'm like, oh, yeah, I remember that concept right now. So that's the first thing I did. The second thing I did was try to figure out what is the best time for me to read, right? Some people can learn during the day. They are early risers. They'll go to the library and they will study either from 8 o'clock to about 4 in the afternoon. And after that, they just kind of like go down. All right, they relax. For me, I was more like an evening study person. Like, I'll go to class in the morning and in the evening, I'll kind of study till like 2 o'clock in the morning or 12 o'clock at night, because I was able to remember most of the concepts better, but that's what worked for me. You have to know what works for you. So that's another thing. Also, I bought a lot of highlighters. So in medical school, the content is just a lot. So I use highlighters and I always take a summary notes next to every PowerPoint slide. So basically translating in my own words. When I do that and I take detailed notes, by the time I read my notes the second time, I'm understanding the concept from my own point of view based on the content that's actually presented in front of me. That's another method I used. Another modality I used was flashcards, right? Now, flashcards are different. There's flashcards already pre-made, like pharmacology flashcards that you can just read and shuffle through. I used one of those. But there are flashcards that you actually have to make it yourself. Now, those are the most painful to make. I have to tell you, because let's say you're studying microbiology and you have to write each bug and what it causes and the infections that's under it. When you actually handwrite these flashcards, you can use them from any course. The downside to it, it takes a long time to make a flashcard. So if you're running out of time, probably not a good idea. But at the beginning, if you know the course is going to be a lot of road memorization, you're probably better with flashcards. So I made a stack of them. I just went to Walmart, bought a bunch of them, and I'll summarize all these notes inside a flashcard with a question and answer at the back. And I just go through them over and over, like, in the evening, so that, if I don't remember what's in it, I flip the card again. I'm like, oh, I just remembered it. Okay, that was another modality I used, especially for microbiology and some of the other classes that required a lot of memorization. The other thing I also implemented was try to understand from an integrative perspective. So a lot of students are learning materials, but they don't want to understand exactly how everything fits together. So I think everything as a puzzle. So I looked at it like, okay, if I'm learning anatomy and the professor is talking about subdural hematoma, that's the clinical pathology that's associated with subdural hematoma, with somebody that got hit in the side of the head from a middle meningeal artery rupture, right? So I try to look at it globally, like, oh, so this is why am I learning this, all right? That's another key important thing. Everything you're learning has a why behind it. Ask the question, why this, why that? What is the mechanism of action? What is the pathophysiology? If you understand pathophysiology and physiology and anatomy of anything, you can basically deduce what's going to happen when there's a pathology. And a lot of students, they don't focus on that. They don't realize that, there's a reason why you're learning. It's like a building block, and everything kind of builds on itself. So you don't want to get to the end of it and you wonder like, oh my goodness, I wish I just understand how the heart really functions. Because now they're talking about cardiac arrhythmias, and you cannot even relate to where the Purkinje fibers is inside the cardiac system. So very, very important. Everything kind of builds on its own. That's another modality that I used, and that worked very, very efficiently. Another modality that I used was study groups. Now, I have to warn you about study groups. There are pros and cons to study groups. Study group can be great. If you guys come together and make a decision, we are going to go over, chapter 1 and 2 of, pathology. And you guys, make a timeline, and everybody make the discussion. You bring your notes, and you have already read before coming to the study groups. If you haven't read anything before coming to the study groups, and you just kind of expect people to just start blurting things out, you understand, it's not advantageous, right? Because you're just wasting your time. You're better off staying at home or in the library to read that material, and then come together with your friends and say, hey guys, let's talk about this topic. However, a lot of students, they come to study groups and they're not prepared, and this is the problem. So I use that modality, and that tend to help a lot. If I don't understand the concept, I'll call my friend up and also explain it. Don't be arrogant. If you don't understand any material, you need help. Go for tutorials early before it's too late, so that people that know the material can also teach you. Another thing that also is very important to know is that everything you're being taught is gonna somewhat end up on your board exam, either the USMLE or on the COMLEX exam if you're in osteopathic school. So you want to be paying attention as you're going along, that how is this relevant? Can this be a high yield material on the board exam? And as you're going along, you probably want to have your first aid for the USMLE along with you, because I use that a lot. Right? Because I said, wait a minute, I have to take my boards in 2 years. I'm a first year medical student, but there's great mnemonics in these books that help me just memorize these materials better. Okay? Another modality is mnemonics. Mnemonics are great. You can make them up or Google them, right? Feel free to use them. If they don't work for you, don't waste your time. If they work for you, use them appropriately, and they will help you tremendously. So I use a lot of mnemonics. Also, stories. You can make up stories. All right? Medical school is a place that you can make up any story, no matter how dirty it is. All right, no matter how nonsensical it may seem, as long as it makes sense in your mind, allows you to assimilate it, the content, and relate it together, so you can do well in these courses. Please feel free to do so. Okay, so make up stories about any of these organisms you're learning and any of these pathologies, so that you can retain them at the back of your mind, because the material is just a lot. Okay, it's voluminous, all right, and it's coming to you at the speed of light. Okay, also, if you have old questions, all right, from your predecessors, your second year class or your third year class, they've been through the road already. Don't reinvent the wheel. Okay, your job is to ride the wheel to the top and break it. All right, so a lot of students like, oh, I'm just gonna try to be as smart as I can. No, not a great idea. Ask your fellow upperclassmen, hey, what notes did you use? What textbooks did you use? Are there videos? Are there audios? Are there old questions? All this will help you, because then you don't have to work twice as hard if the work has been done. So if there's old questions and the professors end up recycling some of these questions, guess what? You just got to review those questions before you do the exam, and basically you might be able to actually see how the questions are tested. All right. The last but not the least is like anatomy. Anatomy, I spend a lot of time in the lab. I just, during dissection, I'm the guy that's up inside the cadavers, make sure I learn every nerve and every artery and every vein that we need to know for the exam. And I like to teach everybody else. And in the process of teaching people, I learn also the same way. So by the time I leave the lab, I've taught 5 people before I leave my anatomy lab, and I already mastered the information. I don't have to come back and waste my time. And finally, the only thing I would say is that if you are going to go to medical school classes or graduate school classes, make sure you're learning the best out of them. If you notice that you're just wasting time, end up not taking good, adequate notes, you're better off not going, staying at home, only if it's not mandatory that you come to class or that you actually have the lectures being recorded and you can listen to it at home. This is a method that you have to actually try by error, because if you skip class and you're doing poorly, and that's not for you. Some people don't come to class and they do very well. It's really kind of up to you from class to class. All right. So these are basically my basic suggestions of how I studied in medical school, and it really worked tremendously for me. All right. Thank you very much for watching. Please feel free to subscribe to my channel and also visit us on smashusmle.com so you're able to watch a lot of high yield USMLE videos. Thank you very much for watching. Bye-bye.